Hey friends, and welcome back. Okay, in this tutorial what we're going to do is we're going to create a guessing game whereby when we refresh the browser, the page says, prompts the user to enter a number between 1 and 3. We're trying to guess whatever number the computer has guessed. So if I guess 2, for example, I got it wrong. I guessed too low. If I refresh again, let's do number 3. Awesome, I won. Okay, so basically we're guessing a number between 1 and 3, and we're trying to see if basically we're guessing the right number. Okay, so believe it or not, we actually know how to do this with all the code we've learned so far. So what we want to do is, first of all, we want to prompt the user to enter a number. We know how to do that. We've seen window.prompt before. Inside of parentheses, we'll just have a message like please enter a number or please guess a number between 1 and 3. We'll store that in a variable called user guess. What we can do is we'll take that input that will be of type string and just convert that to a number. We've seen that before. Then we'll just log out of the console, the human or the user guess, whatever. Then what we want to do is we want to get the computer to have a guess, and we can just use mat.random for the computer to have a guess. So we'll multiply that by 3 and floor and add 1. So we've seen this before. We'll store that in a variable, and then what we'll do is we'll do a comparison to check to see, if the user guessed the same number as the computer, in which case they won. Otherwise, did they guess too low, did they guess too high, etc. Okay, so that's what we have to look forward to in this tutorial. So really what we're doing is we're starting to bring together everything we've learned so far in this course, because I definitely have to teach you all the syntax, like if statements, prompts, all of that. But at some point, we have to start bringing it all together so you can see the logic of how you'd actually start building some games and some cool apps down the line. Okay, awesome. So this is the code I actually wrote. So we'll just delete all of that and start from scratch. Okay, so we're going to be using everything we've learned so far. Like I say, comments, using the console, getting a prompt, etc. So I'll start talking and we'll start coding. Okay, so basically we're creating a guessing game in JavaScript. I don't know why I went for all caps there. I'm not shouting at you. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is, well, let me write out the instructions here. Okay, we want to do a couple of things, right? Number one, we want to prompt, if I can spell correctly, I was out for a walk in the cold, so I hope I can type. So prompt the user to guess a number between 1 and 3. Okay, that's the first thing we need to do. Obviously, we need to store that in a variable and convert to a number. Okay, basically, you need to generate a computer guess using mat.random. We've seen that before. And then what you want to do is you want to essentially use an else if statement and the comparison operators that we've seen. So comparison operators are, like strict equality, greater than, less than, that kind of thing, to do a comparison. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is basically get the human guess or the user's guess. So we'll say human guess. So how do we do that? Well, we want to prompt the user to enter a number between 1 and 3 and then store that in a variable. So I'm going to say let user guess, note the use there of camel case, and that's going to be equal to window.prompt. Okay, so we'll say guess a number between 1 and 3 and add a few exclamation marks there to create a sense of urgency. Okay, so that's going to prompt the user to enter a number between 1 and 3, right? But then what we want to do is we want to take that guess and convert it to type number and then store it in a variable. So what we can do is we can say user guess again. So we're going to override the value of user guess up here, which should be of type string, and convert this here. So basically what we're doing is we're getting the user to enter a number between 1 and 3. Assume I press the number 2 on my keyboard. We store it here, but it's going to be of type string, right? So what we want to do is just pass that in to number, the inbuilt power in JavaScript, and convert it to a type number, and then store it inside of user guess. Don't worry, I'll talk through this code again if this is a bit confusing. And remember, we don't need to say, let user guess like that. Okay, we've already essentially initialized and assigned a value to the variable originally. So all we're doing here is just overriding or assigning a new value. You don't need to redeclare a variable you've already declared. Okay, awesome. Now what we can do is just log that out to the console. So we can say, you guessed number. Then what we'll do is we'll just input user guess. Okay. So I hope all that makes sense. Basically, all we're doing is we're just prompting the user to guess a number between 1 and 3. We're storing it inside a variable called user guess. Then what we're doing is we're taking that user guess, whether it's 1, 2, 3, the string, converting it to type number, and then we have it of type number, okay? And the reason is we want that to be of type number. When we generate a random number for the computer, we want to be able to compare, the same data type. We want to ensure we're getting the same data type and values, just for consistency. Okay, so now we need to get the computer guess. So computer guess, how do we do that? Well, we want to store this in a variable, right? So we'll say let computer guess be equal to number 1, 2, or 3. So we don't want to hard code this, okay? We want to use mat.random. So we've seen mat.random before. So if I say mat.random, okay, that's going to generate a random number, more or less between 0 and 1, okay? But what we want to do is we want to multiply that by 3, okay? So that could give us a value anywhere between 0 right up to like 2.999, etc., okay? So what we want to do is we actually want to floor that, so wrap all of this inside of mat.floor. So basically whatever is after the decimal place we're getting rid of, okay? So for example, if we generate a random number of 1.71, we'd get the number 1. If we got a number of like 2.55, we'd get the number 2. If we got 0.12, we'd get 0, okay? So by using mat.floor, what we're doing now is we're ensuring we're getting a number 0, 1, or 2. So what we want to do then is take all of this and just add the number 1 to the end of it. Okay, so just like that. And now instead of getting 0, 1, 2, we're getting 1, 2, or 3. Okay, awesome. And then what we can do is just log that out to the console. So we can say console.log, the computer guessed, comma separate, and then just whatever the computer guessed, okay? Awesome. Okay, so now the user has a guess and the computer has a guess, and we're logging them out to the console, okay? But we need to do our comparison. So how do we do that? Well, we can use our else if knowledge that we've learned before. So there's a few different ways we could do this. Yeah, because like it's between 1, 2, and 3, we could basically say, okay, if the human guesses above the computer, they guess too high. If they went below, they guess too low. Because it's only 3 numbers, else then, basically they probably won. But to just be a bit more accurate, we're just going to test that the human guess was the same as the computer guess. I'm going to start saying user guess. I think human guess is a bit weird. Makes me sound like I'm an android. I'm actually not. I'm a real person with feelings and preferences. Okay, so I like coffee. Sorry, just grabbing some water. Okay, so basically, we want to check that the user guess is strictly equal to the computer guess. Now remember, I need to use 3 equal signs here for strict equality, okay? So now we're checking to see that the user guess is the same as the computer guess, okay? And if that's the case, we want to log out to the console, congrats, you won. We'll do it in capital letters, congratulations, you won. We want to get the endorphins running in their brain, else if, okay, now, if the user guess was greater than the computer guess, okay, basically we know they guessed too high, didn't they? So say console.log. I'm just going to copy this, okay, an empty string there in console.log. We'll say, oops, you guessed too high. Okay, so basically the user guess was greater than the computer guess. Else if the user guess is less than the computer guess, basically the user guessed too low. So we'll console.log, oops, you guessed too low. I just realized I have bad grammar here. That should be you guessed too high. And then else, well, if the user hasn't won, but they haven't guessed too high or too low with three numbers, I don't know what's going on. So we'll just console.log system error. We'll do it in capitals to be dramatic. System error. Okay, awesome. Okay, so I believe this should work. Let me just review it and we'll talk through it together. So basically what we're doing is we're prompting out to the user or the window, guess a number between 1 and 3. So a user can press 1, 2, or 3. Then what we're doing is we're storing it in the variable user guess. And remember, when we declare a variable for the first time, you want to use the let keyword, okay? Unless it's a constant variable, which we spoke about previously. For example, a date of birth, where you don't want to override the value of a variable later on. Of course, we do, because what we want to do then is we want to take the user guess and just convert it to a number data type. And then we're just logging out to the console, you guessed number, and then whatever they guessed, right? Then down here we get the computer guess. So we generate a number, a random number, using mat.random. So that gets us a number between like 0 and 0.999. Then we multiply it by 3, so we're getting a number anywhere between like 0 and almost 3. Then what we're doing is we're using mat.floor to disregard everything after the decimal place. So we're going to get like, 1, 2, or 1, 0, 1, or 2. And then we just add 1 to it. So we're getting a number between 1 and 3. So 1, 2, or 3. Then we just log that out of the console using console.log. And then we just say the computer guessed, where's my grammar today? Computer guess, okay. And then down here is where we're doing our comparison. So this is where we're doing our check. So checking who won, essentially, okay. So basically, if the user guess was the same as the computer guess, maybe we guessed 3 and the computer guessed 3, then we won. We guessed the computer's number. So congrats, we win. Else, if our guess was greater than the computer guess, we guessed too high, we didn't correctly guess the computer's number. Else, if our guess is less than the computer guess, we guessed too low. Otherwise, system error. Okay, so let's go have a look. Okay, guess a number between 1 and 3. Let's say the number 1. Oh, I guessed too low. Okay, if I refresh, guess a number between 1 and 3. Let's go for 3. Oops, I guessed too high. Let's try again. Go for number 2. Guess too high. I'm going to keep guessing the number 3. Hopefully I win eventually. Oh my god, I won. You guessed 3. Woohoo! Okay. USA. Alright, guys. So that is how we can create a guessing game in JavaScript. I really hope you enjoyed that tutorial. For the first time, we've really started to bring together everything we've learned. So we have our comments here. We're basically creating variables. We're storing a user guess into a variable and converting it to type number. We've seen mat.random before, how we can generate random numbers, and there we're doing a check to see who won the game. Later on in the course, we're going to basically have a complete dice roll game with actual dice on the screen. So that's way later on in this course, but I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. We're finally starting to bring together everything that we've learned, but we've a lot more to do. So for example, I had to like refresh the page to be able to guess. So if you don't want the user to have to refresh the page, which is kind of annoying, we're going to have to start talking about loops and that kind of thing. So that's it for that tutorial. I'll see you in the next one, and we will continue our JavaScript journey together.